Welcome to another episode of the Online Prosperity Experience podcast. You're about to hear your host, Prosper Taravinga's powerful digital marketing strategies and actionable tactics that you can use right now. Prosper has helped more than 50,000 people from over 10 countries to create meaningful businesses that are profitable and enjoyable. Listen to this podcast so that you too can build your own business with less stress and overwhelm. Let's get started.
How telling stories will help you build a business that's profitable and enjoyable. Now, obviously, the goal of every coach or consultant is to gain clients and to actually deliver a message and help people solve their problems. And none of this has to do with telling stories. But what if I told you that using storytelling marketing will actually be one of the best things you'd ever do, for your business? Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because as human beings, we are fundamentally wired to learn from other people's experiences. And the only way these experiences are passed down from each and every one of us is through the power of storytelling. You would hear stories of people that went across the world in ships that if you would jump onto it today, it wouldn't even survive, 2 or 3 days in the ocean. But people, colonized continents, using that equipment. People went to the moon using equipment that is far less superior than the phone that you have in your pocket today. So if you collect and curate all the stories that you've heard that will help you deliver your message, your target market will thank you for it. Now, the essence of all of this is because storytelling marketing is actually you using the narrative to communicate a message to an audience. Now, I viscerally believe we're here to live, we're here to learn, and we're here to contribute. Now, living our best lives is obviously something that we all endeavor to do. Learning is predicated on you knowing what to do and what not to do in order for you to live your best life. And then when you then contribute, you're contributing those lessons that you've learned to others so that they too can have a happier existence. And our job and our role as coaches, consultants, and small business owners is to really help our clients. We want to spend as much time as possible changing lives and solving people's problems. Now, how are people going to know that you're the right kind of person who can alleviate the problems that they have? And how can you actually engage them so that they too can listen to your message and, they can have a happier existence? Now, the message obviously should make your audience feel something, and it should actually drive them to action. So this is the message that you're trying to communicate across, if you've clarified it, so that people can understand what it is that you do and how you can make their life better. And it is considered to be an actual art form, which actually requires creativity, insight, practice, and skill. And half of the time, I don't know about you, but I know that growing up, we're always told that kids are meant to be seen, not heard. So not a lot of us are quite well versed with the whole art form of storytelling. And half of the time when we try to tell stories, we were either not believed or we were cut short because nobody had time to listen to us kids, just simply because we had no authority or we had no experience to drive from. So that would have maybe thwarted your storytelling skills as a kid, or when you did try to do show and tell at school, all the other kids would laugh at you, and then you just withdrew into your inner self, and you couldn't actually start telling stories that would, help you pass on a message or let other people have an understanding of what it is that you you do. You see, when I was growing up, in Zimbabwe, I was actually involved in my school's debate club and public speaking clubs. And we would see a lot of people joining at the beginning of the year because they're excited, they're looking for something to do. But month number 2 or 3, a lot of people will start falling off the radar just because it is something that you're bound to be talking in front of an audience. You're bound to be letting people listen to you, and so many people would rather be in the coffin than the person giving the eulogy. So I started my public speaking journey at a very young age, and I was actually leading a team that went on to high school debates and high school quizzes. So that meant I was interacting with quite a lot of people and having to introduce myself and having to actually, expose myself to people that have never heard of me and audiences that I never knew what their reaction would be to my stories. And half of the events were actually quite prestigious, and that's when I actually started learning my need to tell stories and how to actually formulate stories that sell. So I was part of an elite group of students that actually represented the school in various activities. And when when there was inter-school competitions, it was my club that was invited to go mix and mingle with the other students from the other schools. So we were the ambassadors for our school. And half of this, it actually really taught me how to start telling stories. But I don't think maybe that was your history. I don't think that maybe that was your upbringing. So hopefully it would have been, because then it would make it easy for you to actually clarify your message and spread the word about what it is that you do. So like I say, my storytelling endeavors came from a long time ago, and it's not an overnight practice or a simple tactic for you to actually just step into and start using in your marketing strategy. It's an actually ongoing process that you need to continuously do, and it actually develops your brands, and it makes you stick out in a crowd by connecting your audience to your brand at a deeper level. Everyone can do NLP. Anyone can be IT consultant, but no one has your story. So the only way we connect people is through our own stories. And if you become proficient in telling your story, it actually makes you audible and actually separates you from everybody else in your niche. Now think about an intriguing movie that you've watched, or book that you've read, or maybe an author or speaker or somebody who's in your niche who has a lot of people rallying around them. It's someone who has written stories or keeps repeating certain stories that captivate people all the time. And these people themselves have actually mastered storytelling to actually get their audience hooked. And this is what I want you to aim for in your storytelling marketing: the same hooked reaction with your audience. Okay, now for you to understand why this is important, you should actually note that connecting with other people is one of the highest forms of human beings connection. We are the sort of only animal that has a language. All right, other animals have a language and they can communicate, but we actually have a comprehensive language that sometimes we can speak to so many other people and decide whether they're friends or foes to us. And good storytelling is a key to all of this. What story are you telling? What story is your website telling? What story is your industry telling? All of those are stories that will help you, stand out in the market of Me Too coaches and consultants out there. And really good storytelling will make you stand out. And if you're telling a story to yet another person and they're engaged in it, the two of you are in sync with each other. And storytelling is the trigger of any communication. And That's why it's very, very powerful, because when you tell stories, you actually evoke certain psychological responses from people, and then you drive them to engage with your brand. And this engagement is now the key to successful storytelling, especially on social media. Okay, so in this podcast, I'm hoping to explain how to grow your business brand by using storytelling marketing, and in each of the popular platforms, and why it is actually really, really crucial for you to actually make note that you are connecting with people at an emotional level. Now, just think about how all your friendships would have begun, or continue to grow stronger. You were there for your friends. You experienced things together. You asked each other for advice, and most importantly, you laughed and enjoyed each other's company. Have you ever noticed when you meet up with somebody you haven't met up for a very long time, the first thing that you do is you go back to things that got you connected in the first place? So maybe it was school, or maybe it was maybe you went to college together, or you were in the same hockey team or in the same choir. You start talking about people and funny stuff that would have happened, and then you bring yourselves to start connecting at that level, and then from there you then go on to move on to what people are doing in the future. All right, you see. My very, very first encounter with the internet is a very funny story. You see, it was around 2001, and I just finished my high school when I was still in Zimbabwe. And I was waiting for my A-level results to come through. So we would sit for exams, and then, would have to wait for 2 to 3 months for the results to actually come out. And during this time, you could actually go for a temporary job or a summer job and start earning some money. And I was lucky because I took a job as a legal clerk. And one of the jobs that I was doing actually involved me, traveling to another city where the High Court of Zimbabwe was. And my job there was to go with documents so that they can be processed by the Supreme Court or the Attorney General. So the lawyer that I was working for would actually accumulate up to 20 or 30 processes at a time, and then I'd have to just go and get them signed all at once. And the funny part now is, during one of these trips, my cousin, who was a student at a private school, one of his projects was to create an email address, and he just so happened to create an email address for me. And I had never been in front of a computer at all. And then he just messaged me one day and said, "Hey, cousin, here's your email address. Use it, as you wish, So, so back in the days, I didn't have a computer or access to any internet. So the only way that I would do this is to go to an internet cafe. And funniest thing happened. So I went to one of these popular cafes on my trip to the city. And then I just sat down at this computer, and I was confused as hell. And I was looking at all this, the home page was a Yahoo page. And unbeknownst to me, I actually sat next to this really good looking girl. And to my surprise, this girl actually happened to be a girl I'd gone to high school with. And I actually had a crush on her at some point. So, sweat started dripping, on my forehead and everything else. You know what it is when you actually meet your crush, and, like Eminem's song, his palms are sweaty, knees weak, mom's spaghetti, all of that stuff. It started happening. And I had no clue what I was doing, but I didn't want to show or embarrass myself. And I kept talking and catching up with the girl while she was navigating the internet, because maybe she had lessons, or she had a computer back home, etc., etc. And I literally had no idea what I was doing. So she went on, and as she was now leaving, I was like, "Hey, why don't you give me your email address so I can send you a couple of emails?" And she said one of the funniest things, but it actually motivated me to move forward. And she's told me, "You wouldn't know what to do with it," because she must have been noticing what I was doing. And she just said, "You know what, there's no point in giving you my email address. You wouldn't know what to do with it." Now, that actually got me to want to learn how to use the internet, want to do everything on the internet, just so that one day, if I do meet her, I'll show it off. Well, now I'm doing podcasts. I'm a digital marketer. All of those things. Now, you see, this is a story of how my career actually started because of the embarrassment I felt on the day I couldn't navigate the internet in front of a girl I had a crush on. So let me tell you now, this story might be funny to you, and looking back, for me, it's now, wow, that's literally how I became a digital marketer. I mean, obviously other things happen in between, etc., but most of the time you likely wouldn't have thought this would have been the camel that broke the the straw that broke the camel's back. And now that you know this about me, it's gonna be so funny listening to the next podcast, or even knowing anything that I now know about digital marketing, because ever since then I then moved to Australia and I went on and I studied everything that I could in order for me to build a business that is now profitable and enjoyable. And I threw myself in a new line of work, reading everything in digital marketing I could get my hands on. And I began working with small businesses, and now I've helped them achieve massive growth using my newfound knowledge. Had I not met this girl at this internet cafe, maybe none of this will be happening. All right. So you're going to likely be spending a lot of time telling new people, how you might have became who you are, and things like this are intriguing, and it actually gets you closer to your audience than anything else. Yes, I could tell you everything to do with digital marketing, but the day you knew and you discovered the story of how I embarrassed myself in front of my crush, then it's a whole different connection level that we now have. You might also have stories like that now would have, unbeknownst to you, influence you to become who you've become today. So storytelling marketing can appear in many forms, okay? You might do it in a podcast like we've just done here, in videos, in images, or in written text. Now, using a combination of all these mediums, you as a coach, consultant, or small business, you can actually reach your audience on all levels. And if you, the easiest modem to tell your story these days is social media, and you can actually start using storytelling across each and every marketing platform like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, etc., etc. Okay, but for you to actually have all these elements, or for you to actually tell a conducive story, you actually need to have a few elements in there. First of all, it's characters. Now, let's get back to my story of how I got introduced to the internet. There are two characters involved, three actually. So the first character is me, who is going to a new town to, fulfill a job, and then coming across character number two, who happens to be the girl who I had a crush with while I was still in high school. And character number three, who's not really prominent in the story, is my ex-boss, who was a lawyer, who made the connection happen. So now all of these things are important, okay? The characters, who are the main people in the story, and what is their purpose? I am the person who goes through transformation by going into the internet cafe, meeting somebody that I once knew, and discovering a newfound, joy or need or talent that I had with digital marketing. And what is the setting? Where does this story take place? Now, the setting can be, like in this instance, the internet cafe. All right, it all happened in the internet cafe. And what is the plot? What is happening in your story? Boy meets girl, and girl embarrasses him, and then boy takes that to heart and uses that as motivation to do, and have a happier existence. That is the plot, really. And what is the conflict? What are the challenges your characters are facing? The conflict in this story was I didn't know, anything to do with computers, and also I was still starstruck with my crush. That was the challenges that I was facing. And then the next challenge that I was now given was go and learn how to use the internet so you can be in touch with me. So that was then the conflict. And there's usually like a climax or the arc of and what is the conclusion? How have the characters overcome their challenges? I'm here. I went on and I became the biggest, baddest digital marketer ever known to you right now and to me. All right. And that's how I settled that score. Only because I was spited by that girl who told me that I wouldn't know what to do with her email address. Well, now I've got thousands of email addresses in my data bank and email marketing market list and everything else. And well, the joke is on her right now. Okay. So when you don't want people to just get into what it is that you're doing. You want people to buy into your story, okay? You likely don't spend a lot of time telling maybe a new person that you just met how great you are and listing off reasons why, they should like you and why they should be your friend. People don't want to be told how great you are. They want to experience it and they want to feel it with you. They want to connect with you as a friend and not as a company. And how do you do this? By telling stories. You then get them to experience things together. You obviously must have dropped books. You know that whole scene in movies where a girl drops books and then all of a sudden their crush bends over to help them pick them up, and their love blossoms from there, or whatever it is. That is probably what would have happened in my instance. Where you experienced, you went to a place where something happened with your crush too, and maybe you were tongue tied and you couldn't say stuff. The same principle applies to our current day marketing. You want to connect with people and be their friend, and you actually reap the rewards of loyalty, relationship based audience, and people who would actually defend you at a barbecue. All right. So at the end of the day, as a coach or consultant or small business owner, marketing is just one aspect of running a successful business. You're hiring and managing new stuff, you're balancing books, you're driving growth and a whole lot more. And it actually feels like a constant balancing act where you're pulled in multiple different directions all at once. And all at the end of the day, your real goal is just to help your clients. You want to spend as much time as possible changing people's lives and solving their problems. And you don't want to waste countless hours each day trying to navigate the complex world of online marketing. And certainly you don't have to spend yet another minute on the phone having to beg people to hire your services, because you don't have to. People buy from those that they know, like, and trust. And how do you make people buy from you? You want to tell stories. You want to connect with people on a personal level by telling authentic, character-driven stories, okay? Like my vulnerability of not knowing how to use the internet, and that now became the straw that broke the camel's back, because I really wanted to show that girl that I knew what I was doing. And to do this, you want to make sure that you're allowing people to actually experience your brand instead of telling them about your brand and the message. And this is where storytelling actually comes in. So when you're using storytelling in your marketing, it's actually the art of using real examples that actually demonstrate who you are, what you do, and why it matters, without you really telling, much about, the stuff that you do. Now, there are a few elements that you need to do in order for you to actually share your story. You want to make it personal, okay? Like I did when I was telling you this very embarrassing start of my digital marketing journey, all right? Be sure that you're using an authentic example of something that has actually happened, okay? How have you maybe helped someone? What did you do? And why? All of these things are crucial, because the only thing that differentiates us from other people and other processes out there is the stories that we tell. Now, did you go above and beyond, the basic necessity to actually get the job done? Are you actually using your own photos and videos to actually make it more personal? Because if you're using stock photos, obviously, sometimes we might not be able to have a chance to go in front of a photographer. But if you look at any of my collateral or stuff that I'm using, most of it is all my own photos. I took time out on a day and I looked at what stock photos look like, and I just replicated them with my photographers, all right? So you don't want to use stock photos in your marketing, especially this day and age. People can tell when something is a stock photo or video, and it actually makes them tune out. And a story that's a bit intimate, and you want to really show the photos, even if a photo that's a bit rough around the edges, but it actually showcases the actual situation and the people involved is actually better than a polished stock photo with robotic smiles that are firmly in place. All right. If you want to show a photo of a happy family that you've actually helped, go to that family and really ask them and say, hey, can I use this photo in order for me to use it in my marketing? Because then you can use that on maybe Instagram, because Instagram, storytelling is all about the images. You want to publish images and videos that illustrate your brand and actually convey the stories that you want to tell. All right. At the end of the day, when you now start connecting with people on Instagram, it actually then makes your life a whole lot easier, because a picture says 1,000 words. All right. And once you're there, keep it concise. All right. Keep it short and simple. Tell people just enough so that your story remains compelling, and it actually keeps them tuning in. I think if you look at when I was telling my story, I did it in about 2 to 3 minutes, but I was just really elongating it so that I would then chop it up, and you can see the little components of the aspects of the storytelling that I was telling about. Because nobody has time to just sit there and continuously listen to the same thing. All right, that's why with Twitter was actually very famous, because with 140 characters when they started, you needed to say all you needed to say in the shortest amounts of words possible. All right. We all have very short attention spans, and the very little time, for us to, wait until you figured it all out. And if you want to give important details, you don't have to really stretch your stories in order for them to, make sense to people. So if you're going to want to train yourself to be very concise and use very, short sentences, go on Twitter. Because it's one of the largest social media platforms with over 192 million users, and you want to be involved in that. But it's quite popular with news people, public figures, and people that want to brand themselves. And I think now they've gone up to 280 characters. So your text will now just summarize what you're trying to say in as very little words as possible. I mean, Donald Trump actually was running a whole country through Twitter. So, you could actually start training yourself to be very concise, with your messaging. And then you can help yourself really clarify your message so that people can understand you in the shortest amount of words possible. And I mentioned this before, have a main character, because people want to connect with someone in the story. Okay. It's not about just putting facts and figures together. People zone out. It's incredibly important. Every good story needs a protagonist. In our story earlier on, the protagonist was me trying to figure out the world of internet and also trying to look cool and avoid embarrassing myself. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be you. It should just be maybe another person who's making the story come to life. You know what I mean? Or a person who is most in need or is going through stuff. Start with this person. And if the customer, and if say it's the customer that you want to talk about, paint a picture for the people, a before scenario of what the world was like before and during, while they're going on the hero's journey, and then what they actually achieve. Every story should be transformational in a way that you're taking people through a journey in something that they can relate or place themselves on the journey. All right. So people want to relate with the need for, yearning for something. The story could be helping them justify their failures, ally with their fears, and confirm their suspicions. All right. People need to feel something, or if people are being discouraged or overwhelmed, they can, find themselves in the protagonist of the story. So as you tell your story, start with the feelings the person is experiencing and how you and your company have made a difference. And like I said, people buy from those that they know, like, and trust, and people connect to the feelings of other people, not to brand capabilities. So even when you're telling your brand story or anything of that, nature, even if you are the main character of your story, you want to make sure that people are, becoming a part of that story. All right. Give people a way to become a part of your story. And this might be through your call to action and giving them a chance to put their hand up and say, hey, I like what you're talking about. Maybe me too. I can join in and do and have whatever it is that you're putting out there. All right. So at the end of which, at the end of this, I really want that you have an understanding that the more you tell stories, is the more you actually connect with your audience, because we're here to create for and relate to the people we're going to be demanding money off of. All right. So like I said earlier on, think about all your friendships, how they began and how they grew stronger. You were obviously there for your friends. You were listening to them and you were experiencing things together, and you asked them, you asking each other for advice, and most importantly, you laughed and enjoyed each other's company. Your customers are also looking to connect with you at that level, so you want to make sure that you do that through the power of storytelling. All right. And it is actually, like I said, considered an art form which requires creativity, insight, and practice. And sometimes some people might say, I don't have any stories. Just look at this piece of story that I talked about, when I was learning how to use the internet. We all have stories. Everything that you're doing, we are all going through something. We're all looking for transformation. We're all looking for people to encourage our dreams. We're all looking to justify our own existence. There's a story in each and every one of us. Why don't you wake up and realize that you can actually use those stories to connect with your audience on a deeper level? I can't wait to connect with you and listen to some of your stories. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, let's continue the conversation in the Live Long Digital community. Become a Live Long Digital community member today. This community is for ambitious entrepreneurs and small business owners with the drive to take control of the future of their businesses and achieve huge success without stress and overwhelm. As you heard, Prosper can help you by teaching you marketing strategies that work. So look no further than the Live Long Digital community of entrepreneurs and highly successful business owners. Join our community today. Find us on www.community.livelongdigital.com.au. Network with other driven entrepreneurs and find the expert guidance you need to take your business to the next level. www.community.livelongdigital.com.au